All right. So, when you're really trying to get things done right, when you're tackling all those big challenges, whether it's in your career, your relationships, or just becoming a better copy, it's so easy to get distracted by those quick fixes, those like shiny solutions, right? But
Yeah, totally.
what if effectiveness, like real lasting effectiveness, what if it goes way deeper than just those surface level techniques?
Mhm.
Today on the deep dive, we're going to be cracking open one of those famous self-help books ever,
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, to explore, I think, one of the most important parts of that book. And it's something that a lot of people kind of miss.
Oh, interesting.
It's the foundation, the character ethic.
Covey's work, I think, is more relevant now than ever, especially now when things are just moving so fast. He argues that real effectiveness, the kind that lasts, it's not about those short-term wins, or those like flashy tricks.
Right.
It's about building yourself up from the inside out.
I love that idea. So what is this character ethic
Yeah.
that he's talking about? Like, why should we care about this?
Yeah.
Well, Covey contrasts it with what he calls the personality ethic.
Okay.
And this is this idea that success is all about, how you appear to others and like what techniques you can use.
Mm-hmm.
And he even tells this really relatable story about trying to coach his son in baseball.
Oh, wow.
And he realized that he was pushing his own idea of success onto his son,
Yeah.
not really taking the time to understand like what his son's actual abilities
Oh,
were.
that's interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's something we all do, as parents or even just as friends.
Totally.
Like we project our own ideas of success onto other people.
It's so true. And, that story that you mentioned about Covey and his son, it perfectly illustrates like the biggest problem with just relying on techniques.
Okay.
It's like you're trying to use a map of Detroit to navigate the streets of Chicago.
Right.
You're just going to end up lost and frustrated.
Right.
Covey says we need to understand our paradigms,
Paradigms.
our mental maps, because if those are flawed, if they're wrong, no amount of effort is going to get us to the right destination.
Okay, I'm starting to get this. So how do we shift those paradigms? How do we tap into this character ethic?
Yeah.
Covey talks about this idea of primary greatness and secondary greatness. What's the difference?
Okay, so think of it this way. Primary greatness is like the roots of a tree.
Okay.
It's your character, your core principles, your values, those deep down beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And secondary greatness is like the fruits and the leaves of that tree. It's the skills, the techniques, the recognition that you gain.
Gotcha.
Now, both are important, obviously, right? You want the fruits and the leaves.
Yeah.
But without strong roots, that tree can't really thrive. It's not going to produce anything.
It's going to topple over.
Exactly. And Covey, he puts it so brilliantly. He says, "What you are shouts so loudly in my ears that I cannot hear what you say."
Wow.
Who we are really matters more than what we say or do.
That's a really powerful image.
Yeah.
So how do we cultivate that, that primary greatness? Is it about having those aha moments, where we suddenly see things in a totally different way?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Covey calls those paradigm shifts.
Paradigm shifts.
And it's like when you're struggling with that map of Detroit, trying to find your way around Chicago.
Right.
And then you suddenly realize you've been holding the map upside down the whole time.
Yeah.
And everything clicks into place.
I get it.
And, lasting change, real change, it often requires that we shift those underlying paradigms, not just tweaking, our behaviors a little bit.
So it's not just about doing things differently.
Uh-huh.
It's about seeing the world differently.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're seeing the world differently, but it's also about how we relate to other people.
Right.
Covey has this idea of a maturity continuum.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So he talks about moving from dependence, right, where we're relying on other people to do things for us, to independence, where we become self-reliant. We can take care of ourselves.
Right.
But true effectiveness, he argues, it lies in interdependence.
Interdependence.
Recognizing that we can actually achieve far more when we work together than when we try to do everything alone.
We're stronger together.
Exactly. And that's a choice,
So-
It's an empowered choice that can really only be made from a place of independence.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because you can't really collaborate with someone
Right.
if you're still relying on other people to tell you what to do.
Exactly.
You have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet first.
Yeah.
So how does this interdependence, How does that actually play out in our relationships?
So Covey, he uses this brilliant metaphor
Okay.
of the goose and the golden egg.
The goose that lays the golden eggs.
Exactly. So the goose represents your production capability,
Production capability.
your ability to get things done right. And the golden eggs, those are the results. But if you only focus on getting those golden eggs, you're just trying to grab those eggs all the time, you might neglect the goose.
Yeah, you're going to end up with a very unhappy goose.
Exactly. A tired goose. A goose that might stop laying eggs.
Who's not laying any golden eggs?
Exactly. And that's where the PPC balance comes in.
Okay, PPC balance.
It's about nurturing the relationship with the systems that actually produce those results.
Okay.
Whether it's in parenting and business or even just your own personal well-being.
I see how this applies to so many different parts of life.
Yeah.
Covey also talks about an emotional bank account.
Oh, yes.
What is that all about?
Okay, so it's a really brilliant way to understand trust in relationships.
Okay.
Think of it like a real bank account.
Okay.
Every act of kindness, every courtesy, every time you're honest with someone, that's a deposit.
It's building trust.
You're building trust, right? But every betrayal, every time you disrespect someone, every broken promise, that's withdrawal.
You're losing trust.
You're depleting that trust. So if my account is full of deposits, communication is going to flow easily.
Right.
But if it's depleted, things are going to get tense. It's going to be hard to communicate.
Just like in a financial bank account.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You got to keep that balance.
Maintaining a healthy balance is crucial for long-term effectiveness in any relationship.
Okay, this is all tying back to character. It's fascinating. But how do we become more proactive in actually applying these principles?
Right. So Covey talks about this idea of focusing on our circle of influence,
That's right.
the things that we can actually control, right?
Yeah.
Instead of dwelling on our circle of concern, which is all that stuff that we worry about but we can't really do anything about.
All that stuff that keeps us up at night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he even challenges us to try this little 30-day experiment.
Oh, fun.
Focus on being proactive in your choices. Make small commitments and keep them. And really choose how you're going to respond when you face those challenging situations.
So it's like shifting from I'll be happy when I have.
Yeah. To I can choose to be.
Yeah.
Right now.
Exactly. It's about realizing we have a lot more control over our lives than we think we do.
More than we realize.
And by focusing on what we can influence, we can create some really positive change.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
We have more power than we realize.
Exactly. It's amazing how these habits all kind of build on each other. They create this framework for a really effective life.
Yeah, it's like each step you take makes the next one easier and more impactful, but it all comes back to that foundation of character. Those personal victories, like becoming more proactive and defining our own vision, they pave the way for more effective relationships and achieving those win-win scenarios that Covey talks about.
Exactly. And that brings us to habit 4. Think win-win. It sounds so simple, right?
Yeah.
But in a world that's often so competitive, it can be really tough to put that into practice.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
can definitely relate to that. So is this about finding compromises or always being nice?
Not quite. Covey emphasizes that win-win isn't just a tactic. It's a whole philosophy. It's about seeing the world as a place where everyone can benefit, where collaboration actually leads to better outcomes than constant competition.
He tells that story about a company president who tried to promote teamwork
Oh, yeah.
by setting up a competition between his managers.
Yes, the race to Bermuda, it perfectly illustrates how you can't achieve win-win results with win-lose methods. Imagine trying to teach teamwork by playing King of the Hill.
Right.
Covey's point is that win-win requires a genuine commitment to building trust and creating agreements that benefit everyone involved.
So it's about more than just being nice. It's about setting clear expectations and making sure everyone feels empowered to contribute.
Exactly. Those win-win agreements, they need to be specific.
Right.
What are the desired results? What are the guidelines? What resources are needed? How are we going to measure accountability? And what are the consequences if things go off track?
It sounds like shifting from a control mindset to one of empowerment.
You got it. And those win-win agreements, they can be applied in so many areas, from business deals to family life. Remember that story about the shopping center owners who went from policing their tenants to actively supporting them?
Oh yeah, that was a great example. By focusing on creating a win-win environment, they ended up with happier tenants, a more productive atmosphere, and ultimately everyone benefited.
It's a perfect illustration of the abundance mentality that Covey talks about. There's enough success to go around, and collaboration often leads to better outcomes for everyone.
But what about those situations where you're dealing with someone who's totally stuck in that win-lose mindset.
That's where it gets tricky. Covey acknowledges that not every interaction will result in a perfect win-win. Sometimes, no deal is the best option, especially if the other person is unwilling to consider a mutually beneficial solution.
So it's about picking your battles.
Exactly. But even when you walk away, you can still aim to maintain your integrity and try to preserve the relationship. Now, think about how this ties into the next habit. Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
We all think we're good listeners, right?
Right.
But Covey argues that most of us listen with the intent to reply, not to truly understand.
It's so true. We're often so busy formulating our own response in our heads that we miss the nuances of what the other person is actually saying. We're not really present in the conversation.
So how do we break out of that habit and become more effective listeners?
Covey talks about empathic listening.
Empathic listening.
It's about going beyond just hearing the words and trying to see the world through the other person's eyes to understand their feelings and their needs.
He uses that powerful image of putting on the other person's glasses.
Exactly. It's about stepping outside of our own perspective and trying to truly grasp where the other person is coming from.
And this isn't about just repeating their words back to them, right?
No, it's about reflecting back the essence of their message, both the content and the feeling behind it. It's called mirroring, and it lets the other person know that you've really heard them.
It makes so much sense. You can't really communicate effectively until you've taken the time to understand where the other person is coming from.
Exactly. And only then can you effectively communicate your own perspective. And Covey points out that it's not about manipulating or persuading, but about building trust and creating a genuine connection.
So it's about being authentic, not trying to put on a show.
Absolutely. It's about ensuring that your words and actions are aligned with your values and your intentions when you communicate with integrity. People are more likely to trust you and be open to your perspective.
And it's also about finding that balance between expressing your own needs and being considerate of others.
Right. Covey calls it the balance of courage and consideration. It's that sweet spot of maturity where you can be assertive without being aggressive, where you can stand up for yourself while still respecting the other person's perspective.
It sounds like the perfect setup for Habit 6 Synergize. What exactly is synergy and how does it fit into all of this?
Synergy is about recognizing that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It's about valuing differences, respecting diverse perspectives, and seeking the third alternative.
The third alternative, what's that?
It's a solution that neither party could have come up with on their own. It emerges from the creative tension of different perspectives, and it's often better than anything either person could have imagined individually.
Like that story about the couple who wanted to go fishing but also needed to visit the wife's mother, and they found a way to do both and make it a positive experience for everyone.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how synergy can transform a seemingly impossible situation into an opportunity for growth and connection. It's about embracing the tension of different perspectives rather than trying to suppress them or force a compromise.
But I imagine synergy can be tough to achieve, especially when you're dealing with people who are stuck in their own ways.
Definitely, Covey talks about negative synergy, which happens when people are more concerned with defending their own position than finding a solution that works for everyone. It's like trying to force two magnets together with the same poles facing each other. They'll just repel each other.
So how do you create an environment where synergy can flourish?
It starts with valuing differences and recognizing that diverse perspectives can lead to more creative and innovative solutions. It's about embracing diversity as a strength, not a weakness.
It makes me think of that saying, two heads are better than one, but it's more than that, right? It's about bringing together different ways of thinking and seeing the world.
Exactly. And Covey even talks about interpersonal synergy, the synergy that happens within ourselves when we integrate our logical and creative faculties. Remember that story about the couple who couldn't communicate because the husband was stuck in his logical left brain while the wife was operating from her intuitive right brain?
Oh yeah, that was a funny one. And it really highlights the importance of embracing both sides of ourselves, the logical and the creative.
Absolutely. And Covey emphasizes that nurturing our social and emotional well-being is key to creating and maintaining healthy relationships, which are the foundation for synergy and effectiveness in all areas of life.
He even suggests a practical exercise approach, someone you have a disagreement with, and practice. Habits 4, 5, and 6, seek a win-win, seek first to understand, then to be understood and synergized to find that third alternative.
It's a great way to experience the power of synergy firsthand and strengthen those relationships that are so important to us. And that brings us to habit 7, sharpen the saw, the habit that underpins all the others.
It's all about continuous improvement and renewal, right? Investing in ourselves so we can keep growing and thriving in all areas of life.
Exactly. Covey uses the analogy of a lumberjack trying to cut down a tree with a dull saw. It's a tough, exhausting task. But if the lumberjack takes the time to sharpen the saw, the work becomes easier, faster, and more effective.
So it's like we need to sharpen our own saws to be more effective in life.
Precisely by investing in our physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional well-being, we make it easier to live the other 6 habits and create a life of greater effectiveness and fulfillment.
What are some examples of sharpening the saw in each of those areas?
Well, for physical renewal, it could be things like exercise, eating healthy, and managing stress. These are the foundational practices that keep our bodies strong and resilient, giving us the energy to pursue our goals.
It makes me think of that saying, healthy body, healthy mind. They really do go hand in hand.
They do, and for spiritual renewal, Covey suggests practices like meditation prayer or spending time in nature. These activities can help us connect with something larger than ourselves, tap into a source of peace and inspiration that goes beyond the everyday hustle.
It's about finding that sense of purpose and grounding that can help us navigate life's ups and downs.
Absolutely. And for mental renewal, he encourages reading, writing, and continuous learning, engaging our minds in stimulating activities, helps us stay sharp, curious, and open to new ideas.
I love that it's a reminder that learning shouldn't stop after we graduate. It's a lifelong journey of exploration and growth.
Exactly. And for social emotional renewal, Covey emphasizes service empathy and the synergy we were talking about earlier. These practices help us connect with others in meaningful ways, build strong relationships, and contribute to something larger than ourselves.
It's a reminder that we're not isolated islands. We thrive when we connect with others and contribute to our communities.
Well said, and Covey reminds us that renewal isn't a one-time event, it's an ongoing process. It's about making those small, consistent investments in ourselves each day that over time create a life of greater effectiveness, fulfillment, and meaning.
It's like that quote, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The journey of personal growth and effectiveness starts with those small daily choices we make to prioritize our well-being.
And it's a journey worth taking. As we sharpen the saw in all dimensions of our being, we unlock our full potential and create a ripple effect of positive change that extends far beyond ourselves.
You know, it's amazing how Covey brings all of this together, right, with this idea of sharpening the saw.
Right.
We can't just focus on like outward achievements or techniques,
Yeah.
if we want to be truly effective in any area of life.
You're absolutely right. It's about recognizing that our greatest asset is ourself, and we need to nurture all dimensions of our being. Physical, spirit, mental, and social emotional. Neglecting any one of these will eventually catch up with us.
It's like trying to run a marathon without training or fueling your body properly. You might be able to push through for a while, but you're setting yourself up for burnout.
Exactly. And it's the same with our inner selves. If we're not taking care of our mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being, we won't have the energy or the resilience to really face life's challenges effectively.
So what are some like practical ways that we can actually sharpen the saw, in each of those areas? Covey offers some great suggestions, right?
He does for physical renewal. He recommends the basics: exercise, good nutrition, and managing stress. These are the foundational practices that keep our bodies strong and resilient, giving us the energy to pursue our goals.
It makes me think of that saying, healthy body, healthy mind. They really do go hand in hand.
They do. And for spiritual renewal, Covey suggests practices like meditation prayer or spending time in nature. These activities can help us connect with something larger than ourselves, tap into a source of peace and inspiration that goes beyond the everyday hustle.
It's about finding that sense of purpose and grounding that can help us navigate life's ups and downs.
Absolutely. And for mental renewal, he encourages reading, writing, and continuous learning. Engaging our minds in stimulating activities helps us stay sharp, curious, and open to new ideas.
I love that it's a reminder that learning shouldn't stop after we graduate. It's a lifelong journey of exploration and growth.
Exactly. And for social emotional renewal, Covey emphasizes service empathy and the synergy we were talking about earlier. These practices help us connect with others in meaningful ways, build strong relationships, and contribute to something larger than ourselves.
It's a reminder that we're not isolated islands. We thrive when we connect with others and contribute to our communities.
Well said. And Covey reminds us that renewal isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. It's about making those small, consistent investments in ourselves each day that over time create a life of greater effectiveness, fulfillment, and meaning.
It's like that quote, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." The journey of personal growth and effectiveness starts with those small daily choices we make to prioritize our well-being.
And it's a journey worth taking. As we sharpen the saw in all dimensions of our being, we unlock our full potential and create a ripple effect of positive change that extends far beyond ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 7 habits of highly effective people,
hmm
what's like the one key takeaway you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I think Covey's most powerful message is that true effectiveness starts from the inside out. It's about cultivating those core principles of character integrity, proactivity, and a deep commitment to personal growth that form the foundation for everything else.
It's not about quick fixes or surface-level techniques, but a profound shift in perspective, a way of seeing the world and ourselves that empowers us to create lasting positive change.
And that journey is available to all of us. By embracing the principles of the 7 habits, we can create lives of greater meaning, purpose, and impact.
It's been an incredible journey exploring these habits with you listeners as you go out into the world today. Remember to sharpen your saw, invest in your well-being, cultivate those core principles of character, and watch as the ripple effect of your efforts creates a more effective and fulfilling life for yourself and those around you.
Beautifully said. And remember that journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take that step today and start creating the life you truly desire.